Hello and welcome to another edition of CSBJ Radio. I'm your host, Greg Wilson, the owner and publisher of Connections Small Business Journal. I want to thank each of you that are tuning in today, whether it be on iHeartRadio, whether it be on Spotify, iTunes. I thank you for tuning in to another edition of CSBJ Radio. If you are not following us online via social media, I encourage you right now while I just mentioned it and it's top of the mind for you, I encourage you to follow us on social media. Simply type in the @ Connect My Biz on Instagram, Connect My Biz on Facebook, Connect My Biz, that's BIZZ, even on Twitter. I encourage you right now to go follow us, find out what we are about here with Connection Small Business Journal. If you wanted to subscribe to the journal, do that. www.connectmybusiness.me. Again, that's www.connectmybusiness.me. We're always online. We're always available to do three things: to connect you to people, resources, and information with Connection Small Business Journal. Now, how is it that small business owners, how is it that entrepreneurs thrive in the midst of failure? You know, a lot of people go to despair. A lot of people give up. A lot of people quit. A lot of people throw in the towel. But a true entrepreneur, a true small business owner thrives right in the midst of failure. And that's what we're going to talk about today, right here, coming up on CSBJ Radio. Welcome to another edition of CSBJ Radio. Today we are diving into ways how we as small business owners, as we as entrepreneurs, and quite honestly, we as people overcome failure. You know, one of the greatest hindrances to people in general is running into the brick wall, running into the obstacle called failure. And at that point, a lot of people, quite honestly, that cash out, they throw in the towel, they run away and hide, they take a sabbatical right after a failure. But I believe that true entrepreneurs, true small business owners thrive right in the midst of a failure. Now, one of the things that I guess if you can say qualifies me to discuss this is, you know what, giving the fact that it has happened to me a few years ago. The very first business that I launched, quite honestly, it crashed and burned. Cashed out my 401k. 2 or 3 years later, I was completely broke, completely out of a business and out of money. I, at that particular period and point in my life, deemed myself as a failure. But here we are, 10 years later, and guess what? We are yet thriving. We are yet fighting. We are yet going forward. Why? Because I truly believe that true entrepreneurs, true small business owners, true individuals that are starting up a startup company thrive right in the midst of a failure. And so today I want to talk about that. Man, how is it that you're able to do this? How is it that small business owners can do this? How is it that, you know, someone's business and their livelihood as they knew it goes completely underwater, but yet they thrive, yet they keep going, yet they don't quit? Today we're going to talk about that. And we're going to look at some ways that even maybe you are experiencing failure like right now. You know, sometimes, you know, we get on the podcast and we see each other on social media and we see each other at networking events. And quite honestly, we have no idea of what the next person is going through. Like right now, you that are listening to me today have no idea what I personally am going through. And and flip the coin over. And guess what? I have no idea what you're going through on a personal level. But there are certain things that we holistically, we experience just because we're human. And just because we are on this ride called LIFE, we're on this ride called life. And some things that happen to me will happen to you. Some things that have happened to you, guess what? They will or have already have happened to me. But how in the world do we thrive right in the midst of that? And the very first thing that I think that is necessary for us to do this is to always have what I would label, a forward-thinking attitude, a forward-thinking mindset, that even in the midst of a cloudy day, even in the midst of my darkest nights, in the midst of your darkest days and your darkest nights, we still have the ability to think positive, to think forward, and quite honestly, develop a clear road to success. Success as we knew it prior to the failure, 9 times out of 10 will not look the same as success after the failure. A lot of times what happens is that failure actually causes us to revamp the plan, to come up with a different plan, a different strategy, go a particular way. Don't do those things that led to the failure, and after the failure, do things completely different. Quite honestly, you know what? I believe that failure, be careful, hold on, put on your seatbelt for this statement. I believe that failure is a necessity. That's right. Failure is a necessity for everyone in life. Why? Because it teaches us, it molds us, it shapes us into individuals, it shapes us into companies, it shapes us into small businesses, it shapes us into entrepreneurs, it shapes us into a startup, a successful startup, and molds us the right way. But in order for that to happen, in order for that to take place, we have to always have a forward-thinking attitude. We always have to have the ability, like I said earlier, right in the midst of your darkest hour, your darkest day, to still have a positive attitude, to not throw in the towel, even though you may feel like it. We're human. Humans suffer pain. Humans suffer disappointment. Humans are let down, if you will. But even in the midst of those things, we still have to have a forward-thinking attitude, an ability to quite honestly create a clear road and see a clear road ahead. Now, in order for us to do those things, in order for us to have a forward-thinking attitude, man, where does that come from? And I believe that there are a lot of tools that are available. There are mentors that are available. There are spiritual organizations, whether it be a church or a small group or a close friend or a counseling session or a counselor, if you will. There are multiple tools that are out there that are available to keep you having a positive attitude, to create, even if you will, a positive attitude. But you know what? If you have it, you have it. And if you don't, you don't. And that sounds kind of dry. It sounds kind of maybe the wrong thing to say. But how many people just have it? And how many people, even more people, just don't? There are individuals who go to complete and utter despair after failure. But I truly believe that in order for us to be successful in life, we have to have the ability to always think positive, the ability always to forward think. And whatever you do to create that forward thinking attitude, whatever it is that you take under your belt, to have that forward thinking attitude, to develop that forward thinking attitude, to always think positive. I think whatever you have to do in order to do that, we need to find ourselves doing it. So again, the very first thing that we must have to thrive immediately after a failure, or currently while you're going through a failure, you can still thrive. You can thrive as the ship is sinking. Now, I'm not saying for you to ride the ship all the way to the bottom. Not at all. Sometimes we have to jump. Sometimes we have to step out into uncomfortable situations. Sometimes we have to reach out for help. Sometimes we have to grab the life preserver. Sometimes we have to have the Coast Guard, if you will, the virtual Coast Guard, the digital Coast Guard, come in and lift us out of troubled waters. But nothing is wrong with that. But I am encouraging you right in the midst of that, right in the midst of you having to strap on that life preserver, that in the midst of it, you have a positive, forward-thinking attitude. We'll be right back right here with CSBJ Radio. And today we are discussing thriving right in the midst of failure. We're back here with CSBJ Radio again. This is your host, Greg Wilson, the owner and publisher of Connection Small Business Journal. Today, we are discussing thriving in the midst of failure. Thriving in the midst of failure. And the very first thing that I believe that is necessary for every entrepreneur, for every small business owner, and not just every small business owner, not just every entrepreneur, but just people, period. If you're a person that just happens to come across this podcast, and maybe you're searching on Spotify, maybe you're searching on iHeartRadio, and you just stumbled across, even the title, how to thrive or thriving in the midst of failure. Maybe you just need to hear this. I don't know. But I truly believe that it is beneficial, it's advantageous for every human, if you will, to always have a positive attitude, to always be able to have a forward-thinking attitude, to find themselves or create even the opportunity for themselves to thrive right in the midst of a failure. Then the very next thing, that having that positive attitude, I truly believe is necessary, is the ability to believe in you. For me personally, this hits very close to home. And what I mean by that is that I believe in me even when the entire world does not. Now, that comes with its challenges. That comes with its interesting points. It comes with advantages. It comes with disadvantages. But I, Greg Wilson, believe in myself when no one else believes in myself. I am my greatest cheerleader. But the flip side, I am also my worst critic. I literally beat myself up. There's not a soul on this planet that is going to beat me down more than I beat myself down. And there's not a soul on this planet that can uplift me more than I can uplift myself. Believe in yourself. Believe in yourself, even on those dark days that we talked about earlier, those dark nights when you're up against the wall, when you don't see your way out, when you can't see your way out, still have the ability to believe in yourself. You know what? We can build a particular resilience, if you will. They build and they construct buildings in the path of hurricanes, right? They build buildings to withstand X amount of force of a hurricane wind. They build buildings that can handle the winds of a Category 3 hurricane. They build buildings. They construct buildings. They construct these resilient buildings that are able to withstand the winds of a Category 4 or a Category 5 hurricane. See, the winds can blow, but at the end of all of the winds blowing, at the end of all of the other buildings being demolished, the building that was created to withstand the blows, 9 times out of 10, is still standing. For you as a small business owner, for myself as an entrepreneur, for us even as humans, I think that we should be able to protect ourselves by developing a sense of resilience. Understand that, life does indeed come with problems. I don't necessarily have to be a small business owner to experience problems. The fact that I'm alive, the fact that we are humans, the fact that we are going through, again, this roller coaster ride, if you please, called life comes with problems. But even in the midst of those problems, in the midst of the ride, in the midst of all the ups and downs, the climaxes, the lows, the obstacles, the valleys, the smooth sailings, the rough seas, in the midst of all that, we should all develop a sense of resilience that will help us to thrive right in the midst of failing, right in the midst of it seeming that, everything is against us. I believe, again, that having that sense of resilience is critical. The third thing that we would like to talk about today is perseverance. Persevering in the midst, right in the midst of failing. Persevering again when you don't see your the way out, when you can't see necessarily your way clear. Perseverance. The very first business that I launched, again, I don't make any bones about it. I don't hide the fact that, guess what? It failed. Failed. But I persevered. I kept going. I revamped myself. I redid the business plan. I came up with a marketing strategy because, quite honestly, there was not one before. Before the failure, there was no marketing plan. Before the failure, there was no marketing.